Hello and welcome. We are here to continue the conversation on AI and us now and next. It is impossible to have a conversation, particularly in the world of work, without talking about AI. I don't know about you, but at least that's been my experience. And I started this conversation on AI and us back in May at the seventh annual World of Work virtual conference that I co host with Tiffany Castano of Sefer LLC, where we dug into what does AI technology and AI based tools mean for the entire career arc and how is the whole world of work being reshaped by AI. So if this is a topic of interest to you, and then you're in the right place. And I also want to take a moment to welcome everyone who's joining us live on LinkedIn and on YouTube. And if this is the first time we are meeting, well, I'm really pleased to meet you. My name is Meenakshi Iyer. I'm the founder and principal of Northstar Solutions and Services LLC. And through my work at Northstar, I'm dedicated to unpacking leadership at the messy middle. And I'm a technologist turned leadership and agile coach, and I specialize in supporting mid career leaders help turn strategy into outcomes without the burnout. And so AI is a topic of interest personally for me, given my technology background, and also what I am seeing how AI is changing the world of work and how it's affecting the human experience. So there was so much momentum in the May conference. There were a lot of questions that came from our attendees that there was no way we were not having a follow-on conversation, and that has resulted in this three-part conversation series, AI and Us, Now and Next, continuing the conversation. And those of you that have been tracking this, you would have heard from Shreya Kaushik, who was also one of our speakers at the conference, join us, and we dug a little bit more into some of the nitty gritties, some of the realities facing organizations and leaders when it comes to the use of AI and AI based technologies. So, today in episode two, it's my absolute pleasure to continue the conversation, pick it back up with the amazing Sahana Shenoy. Hi, Sahana. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, Meenakshi. Thanks for having me here. Good to be back.
Absolutely, yes. So Sahana is joining us from Bengaluru, India, which where it is what 7:30 your time at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much for making time. Sahana is an accomplished product and program management leader who has dabbled in AI far longer than many of us have. And in case you've missed it, Sahana has also been one of my guests on my podcast, Inside the Messy Middle Leadership Lessons from the Field. I'll link her episode in the show notes in just a few minutes. So, what we're going to talk about today is really digging a little bit deeper into the intersection of people, business, and technology, and the role of AI in reshaping, reframing that intersectional space. When we spoke with Shreya a couple of weeks ago, Shreya helped us dig deeper into some of the changes that are happening when it comes to decision making at the executive leadership level, and how business and technology are uh, silos, and how the human experience is being reshaped. Yeah. So today, what we want to do, Sahana, is start us off with. I remember you had attended our May conference, so I wanted to start off by asking you a couple of your sort of reflections and takeaways from the conversation, because you also attended Shreya's talk, which is one of our featured talks.
Yes. Yes. Thanks. I think that's a great question, Meenakshi. So, the biggest theme that has stayed with me through the great lineup of conversations and speakers that you've had, both in the conference and the podcast, is definitely been AI capability And the other one is the organizational intelligence. That is something that I've been thinking more about, one dimension that I've been thinking more about lately. And what I mean by organizational,
Hmm.
intelligence is that now what you see in industry is that pretty much everyone has the access to foundational models. So having access, having an AI model is no longer, a differentiator for any organization now.
Hmm.
How do they bake the AI model into their systems? How do they creatively use the data that is only available to them, their competitive intelligence, which is not available on the public internet, or um, you know uh, basically it's a public knowledge. So how do they use their domain expertise, their data, their market positioning, their customer insights? How do they use that and then creatively use AI to benefit them, to benefit the organization in a long term? So that is what that is one dimension that I've been exploring more on lately, which is also AI no longer is just a technology transformation, right? It is more also about how we are operating on an organizational level. How are we getting things done with technology, with human expertise, both of them coming together?
Yes, thank you for sharing that. I also want to, sorry about that. I'm going to do a quick check and welcome people who are joining us live.
Sure.
Hi, Poonam. Hi, Manoj. And I know both of you were attended our conference as well. So thank you for making time to join us back. I also wanted to do a quick tech check. I want if you can share in the comments if the audio is coming through, audio and video are coming through. I just wanted to double check that before we carried on with our conversation. Okay. Can you still hear me okay, Sahana?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you for sharing those insights. And I love the high level organizational perspective that you highlighted. And so my next question to you is, where do you see organizations? And by the way, folks, when I'm looking away, I'm looking down at my notes with my questions. So I wanted to ask you, where, in your experience, where do you see organizations getting stuck between AI aspiration and AI execution? Like where they want to be and versus where, in reality, where can they really realistically get to? That's my first question, and then I have a follow up for you on that.
Sure, sure. Again, great set of questions, Meenakshi. I think one common trend that I've seen in 2025 is uh, AI became a tech ambition that most of the organizations uh, thought that now we have an LLM, we have access to it, we can build an agent, and let's right away start racing towards it. So, and even before they could actually start defining what is the problem that they're trying to solve. So I think that's exactly where um, what I would suggest is that let's most leaders now, or the middle managers or the organization, where they have to start is actually look at the customer problem or the business objectives that they are trying to achieve. What is the exact pain point that they are looking at? Then start working backwards, deep dive into this problem, see if the customers are actually willing to pay for it. Then once you define this problem is when you have to then start looking at the technology and the how portion of it. How do we want to solve it? Once you know the how, is when you can actually start looking at, is this a problem which would need your LLM to come in? Is this where you want to have an AI? Do you have nuances or deep tech pattern recognition kind of problems that you want to bring AI to actually solve this? or you can pretty much have a deterministic kind of a rule based engine which can still address and solve the customer problem. So that is one space where I feel uh, most organization kind of started racing towards last year, uh, right away building AI agents and using AI even before solving the even before defining a problem. That is one space. The next space is where scaling the AI in itself, uh, which brings the AI economics into it, right? So once you have the problems defined, it's also important to see how can you scale it. Does your uh, cost to build this AI infrastructure actually breaks even, actually delivers the profit or the margins that you're looking at? So your scaling, your POC, all of that has to
Hmm.
kind of address these questions around AI economics.
Hmm.
Is it solving the right problem? Is it bringing in the right business outcomes?
Thank you for sharing that. Two things stood out for me. One is um, the you had touched upon this in the when we spoke during our in our podcast as well.
Right.
And the other thing is it's a through line to what Shreya talked about in the previous episode of this conversation series. It's about the fit for purpose. Don't use
Right.
AI for the sake of AI. Really tie it back to an active business problem or a customer problem,
Yeah.
and introduce AI only if it is the right fit, only if it is something that only AI can do,
Correct.
or if AI is really going to help you solve the problem in a more holistic manner or more quickly. So identify the first, define the problem, and then also identify if AI is indeed the correct solution. It's the best fit.
Correct.
um, and I was also reminded of this quote. I think it's attributed to Einstein: "A problem well defined is already half solved."
Yeah.
And I think in this case, when we think about the use of AI, extending that to saying, okay, let's also define what AI can and cannot do in this case, and it's a case by case decision, really, instead of a blanket, oh, let's use AI for everything, right?
True.
And I also loved how you called out, which I think is very insightful, is the economics, paying attention to the economics much before it becomes an issue in and of itself. That itself becomes a problem, right?
Right.
So for example, we are seeing reports that are coming out lately where organizations made a very rash decision to replace a lot of their people with AI based tools, only to find out that really thinking about the economics before it becomes a problem of its own, right? So thank you for calling those two out. And I have a follow up question for you on this: is when organizations are making these decisions, what's the role that middle managers and leaders at the mid level within organizations, what's the role that they can play? Because one of the challenges we're seeing, or one of the risks we're seeing with AI based technologies is some companies claiming that they no longer need the middle management layer at all. I, for one, don't believe that that's true, and I think it's a huge risk. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Um, I would say, I think firstly, the way we frame the conversation around human versus AI, that kind of doesn't sit right with me because, um, and also I think it's time to sort of reframe the conversation to make it, um, to actually ask how do we combine strengths of both AI and human. It should be human with AI. And
Hmm.
it's not about getting AIs to behave like humans and putting getting humans to compete with the AI. I think that both these trends should be brought in together such that we bring out the best what is suited for the organization. um, Coming back to your question, I think in terms of the middle management, right? I think they play a very important part, as this role sits at the intersection of business, tech, on ground operations. A lot of this at this altitude, it's a lot of this is visible. The be it constraints, be it your priorities, right? So I think middle managers play a very important role, and a lot of what your employees, your team, your middle managers do sometimes doesn't show up in the data. It doesn't show up in your leader dashboards, right? So such as dynamically adapting to a new challenge, navigating ambiguity, resolving conflicts, exception management. A lot of this doesn't show as an action in your, doesn't get recorded in your system as an action, but all of this has happened because people have dynamically collaborated and got this solved for you. Uh, so human skills very important, such as your judgment, context, your lived experience, your domain expertise. A lot of this is going to contribute heavily to how we build scalable and secure, reliable AI systems. So yeah, so that's what I believe is going to build better systems in, be it AI or non AI.
Hmm. Hmm. Thank you. I'm going to bring that up again. I love what you said. It's not about making AI behave like humans or vice versa. It's really about bringing them together to solve problems. That's such a valuable call out. And I was reminded of a parallel when uh, at the onset of the pandemic, everybody suddenly started had to were forced to work remotely. Those of us in the software outsourcing world, we've been doing this for I don't know 30 odd years,
Yeah.
but the rest of the world hadn't. And then suddenly everybody was thrown into working remotely. And I remember even now, I think we are kind of still there, is when we try to replicate our physical world in the digital world. And we struggle to make it work because we want to follow the same rules of our in-person world in the virtual world. And some of the rules are slightly different to make it work, right? I was reminded of that when you talked about how we kind of tend to focus on humanizing AI and I don't know, making people more robotic because we're looking for efficiency in humans. We're looking for machine-like efficiency and predictability in humans. And we are somehow trying to make AI more emotionally intelligent. And what you said is making me question the validity, the value of that whole exercise of humanizing tech, humanizing AI, and going the other way. And I'm just noting that that's a very interesting perspective and something to for all of us to consider, particularly in an organizational setup, when we're making those business decisions on where to use AI and for what purpose, right? So, um, thank you for sharing your wisdom on that. I want to take another moment to again welcome folks who've just joined us. Sahana and I, we are talking about the use of AI and how our organizations making decisions on when to introduce AI and when to pursue AI as a solution. And we are also talking about what it really takes and how middle managers and leaders at the mid-level layers within organizations, how they can be of a source of value and be sort of like risk advisors for organizations and executive leaders. Yeah. So again, if you're joining us live, thank you for joining us live, sharing a part of your weekend with us, and please add your questions to the comments here, and we'll pick it up as we go on in the conversation. Um, my next question to you, Sahana, was um, a continuation, picking it up, is what does responsible AI actually look like on a day, from a day to day at a team level? What does that look like in your experience?
Yeah, that's a very important question, considering how we are evolving as an industry, right? Because what's happening is this: most of the organizations now are optimizing for speed over things like building AI responsibly, making sure there's governance, there's quality, etc. So I think it's a bigger question of how do we build better governance, better security controls, privacy controls, while making sure your AI is responsible. First thing is, it shouldn't be just a policy document, right? It should be baked in your operating model. It shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be present in your operating process in itself, because a lot of these AI based systems are probabilistic. So what you see today, the output is not going to be maybe similar in next few days, right? So you need very strong
Hmm.
guardrails around evaluation, monitoring around these models, a very strong gateway layer or a framework that makes sure that what data is the system using, is this output grounded in the right information, fact checks, what happens when your model is wrong, what is the consequence of this, who reviews these decisions. So stronger evaluation, stronger escalation models, stronger plan of action. If something breaks down because of a certain action that your agent took, what is the plan of the action, what is the fallback? And as we move more towards multi-step agents, multi-agentic workflows, I think there's a need to establish a very clear boundaries as to what your agents can, access, what they can't, what actions can they take, such as PII data, what are the sensitive information that they should not be picking up on. Not just from the governance or security aspect, it's also from your cost aspect, because that's going to lead more inference cost as you increase the boundaries and the walls of agents, right? So there's many other dimensions also. But yeah, that is definitely a gap that I see in the industry right now, that people are building AI capabilities faster than they're building governance, evaluation, and AI
Yes,
literacy needed to use it responsibly. Yeah.
correct, correct. Wow, there's so many nuggets there. Um, I'm reminded of a couple of things that I've read lately. Is like you rightly pointed out, most teams and organizations seem to over-index on speed, and
Yeah.
it's and even the language we use. It's like the AI race. That's the language we tend to use. Um, and I remember reading something recently that if you look at the life cycle, AI has accelerated the production aspect of the life cycle. And now what has happened is the because of that increased speed, how quickly you can produce things, you really push the bottleneck down the life cycle,
Yeah.
because everything then now is you can't just release it. There's review required, and that's where human skills like critical thinking and judgment come into play. And I'm definitely in the work that I do, in the coaching and training teams on all aspects of business agility. I'm definitely noticing the over indexing on speed, and then we teams get stuck on not knowing how to proceed further, because also, like you rightly pointed out, governance sometimes seems to be an afterthought. Like you start I think we are becoming unfortunately, we are becoming better at applying all the anti patterns of agile, right? One of the anti patterns of agile is doing first and thinking later, which is what some new teams, new to agile, will start doing that. And then we tend to think that, oh, we don't need to document anything. We can just go do things and then we can figure it out later. I feel like
Yeah.
when it comes to AI, we are kind of living some of those anti patterns of agile that we've tried for so long to actually overcome. And the other thing that what you said reminded me of is also the day-to-day tension that teams experience when governance is not communicated clearly, governance guidelines are not communicated clearly. right? Would you what would you add to that? What are you noticing in how teams are managing this on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, I think the industry is moving towards this. This has been, this is something that has been observed by many leaders and organizations, that governance is something, stronger evaluation frameworks, stronger governance controls, building a strong framework around um, monitoring, both from FinOps or be it the privacy, security. All of this is being now recognized, and more frameworks are being introduced within organizations to actually handle this. So yeah, we are moving in the right direction there. Yeah.
Okay, that's encouraging to note. And I was also reminded of this quote that I saw somewhere. It said, we have to remember that the compass was invented before the clock, and there's a reason for that. Direction is more important than speed.
Correct.
So,
Yep.
yeah. All right. My next question for you, Sahana, is based on what you're seeing now, which human skills, in your opinion, are becoming more essential in an AI-driven world of work?
Yeah, I think it ties back to what we just discussed a while ago. I actually think AI is going to make domain expertise more valuable. Your critical thinking, your judgment, problem framing, um, contextual, uh, contextually adapting to newer situations. Like for example, AI is built on historical data patterns, right? How has things taken place historically, user behaviors and so on. So the underlying assumption is that tomorrow is going to look like yesterday. But generally, if you look at real life, there are going to be exceptions, maybe minor, maybe major. Let's take COVID. So through COVID, the supply chain, your logistic, a lot of these things came to a screeching halt because your data, underlying data, your assumptions, all were proven wrong. So that's where humans come in. Your all of the skills that I just mentioned about analyzing, dynamically adapting to how do we now maneuver this newer challenge at hand. um, because now your
Mm,
data in itself doesn't, it no longer applies to the current reality, so you have to quickly maneuver, quickly um, respond to the situation at hand. Yeah. So yeah, so again, I think AI is a good, we should treat it in a such a way that it's going to augment our work, and it is largely to build systems which are going to automate your repetitive, your monotonous patterns or your data entry, things where humans can now reallocate your focus onto more high value strategic work rather than looking at this. So yeah, I think it should be more of a complementary way of operating rather than a human versus AI.
mm, mm. I love that. Complement instead of being a competitor, right? It's not human versus AI or AI versus human. It's how might we come together to and work together. And I was recalling something you had shared in the podcast as well. And one of the takeaways that you had shared was using AI as a thought partner, not as a replacement.
Yeah.
And one of the things you had said is AI helps accelerate prototyping and thinking, but critical thinking and judgment still sits with humans. So it is only as effective as the AI is only as effective as the human expertise and the data behind it. And a reminder that you had shared was let's use AI to amplify thinking, but not to replace it. And I'm hearing some of those same things right now. And I loved how you called out that domain expertise, ability to connect the dots, ability to contextualize. These have remained core human skills in the world of work, but I think these are now becoming more important um, when producing something has become so much easier, then the barrier to production is really low, then these skills become more important, right?
Correct. Yes.
I'm I'm noticing you're thinking more. So what else would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I think most of the systems are, these AI agentic workflows are as good as the context that you give it, the way,
Mm.
the data that you provide to it, the quality of prompts or quality of context, knowledge that you give it. That's how it is going to sort of, it's all going to come together. So again, this is where your domain expertise is going to stand out. This is where how you use your organizational intelligence is going to matter. um, Same, I mean, the model is now
Mm.
accessible to everyone in the industry. It all comes down to how you and your team can creatively embed the AI within your system in such a way that it's going to solve a certain business problem or a customer pain point.
Yeah.
So it's like
Creatively
a
embed
powerful,
AI. Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yes.
It's like a powerful, expensive tool, Uh, I think a better way to put it, it's like a good sports car. And it's up to you to decide if you want to go use it to just go buy a pack of milk or a carton of milk, or do you want to do something, go onto a racing, racing for the love of my analogies. Yeah, so it's
Yes. I
entirely
was
up
just
to
going to
you.
say that. Sahana is back with her analogies.
Yeah, so it's totally up to you. How do you want to use it? So while making sure there's lesser cash burn for your organization. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Um, I have a couple more questions, but before that, I want to make space again for folks that are watching us live. Uh, your questions, what are you thinking about? What's standing out for you and what you've heard Sahana share so far? Share it in the comments. And also, once again, thank you for joining us live on a weekend. And at North Star, we are celebrating, this is our birthday month. So we're celebrating our seventh, completing 7 years and stepping into year eight as a consultancy, coaching, and consultancy practice, supporting middle managers around the world and their teams, help translate strategy into outcomes without the burnout. So we do that through strengths based coaching, leader coaching, and team coaching, and also helping teams adopt lean agile ways of working. And so AI is definitely part of that conversation with the acceleration that it can generate. And like Sahana was saying just now, it's like a sports car. So the you go from 0 to 100 in milliseconds. So now where do you want to go is the decision that people like you and I have the power to make and have the power to help orient the organizations and teams that we are a part of. Yeah. So let us know what's standing out for you, what questions you have. And I'm seeing something pop up in the comments. Oh, that was a good analogy. Thank you, Puram. Yeah, I don't know if you haven't listened to Sahana's episode on the podcast, do check it out, and you will find more wisdom and more amazing analogies. Excuse me. So, Hannah, before I ask my final couple of questions, I wanted to ask you what's one thing that's top of mind for you that we haven't talked about yet?
Mm, let's see. I think one pointer that I can think of right now is, um, rather than more around, building blended architecture. I think that's how things are evolving right now. When I say blended architecture, it means a portion of it which can be solved, a portion of your problem which can be solved in a deterministic way. Identify that, use your rule based engine to solve it. Next portion could be an LLM, uh, which needs deep tech, plus your human. human intervention, human judgment, human reviews. So this blended architecture is one thing, a one dimension that middle managers or leaders can keep in mind while they're designing any problems that they've identified, rather than going full on, blanket LLMs, because that's going to increase your cost, your a lot of other things that we just discussed. So yeah, I think uh, looking at if this is something that can be achieved within their organization is a good uh, way forward.
Hmm. Hmm. I liked how you kind of um, the way you arranged your thoughts in that, and how, particularly with respect to middle managers and how they can um, create value in this space. So really appreciate that. All right. One of my final questions for you is, um, if you could give leaders, particularly those in middle management, um, some advice on what kind of future proofing their careers they can do over the next 3 to 6 months, what would that be and why?
Hmm. Yeah, I think it's a good way to summarize a conversation, because it kind of uh, encapsulates all that we have discussed so far. I think I would just go point by point, if that's okay. Like, kind of summarizing, how do you approach any given problem? Firstly, identify a problem. If it's a real problem, it's a customer pain point. Because why am I stressing so much on this is that essentially any business in the world, any product today thrives on a customer who is willing to pay, right? If there are no, be it B2B, B2C, if there are no customers for it, your product is essentially sitting on shelves, right? So it's important you identify a problem which needs uh, a good solution. First do that, and then work backwards, identify the how part of it, understand the economics of it. If you use AI, if you use any other tech for it, is it going to break even? Is it going to generate the respected the projected um, ROI or margins that you looked at? Then look at building blended architecture. Look at how AI can augment your work. Meanwhile, you should also look at building a layer, a framework of controls, of governance, your observability, traceability. At any given point in time, you should be able to trace back as to why your LLM or AI suggested or took a certain action. So build that traceability within your system, within your workflow. Um, yeah, and I think that's the way forward. Ultimately, the advantage won't come in simply because your organization has AI. It all comes down to, again, how are you increasingly using AI to creatively solve the problems.
Thank you. I love the way you summarized the conversation. That's a you've done it beautifully there. And I also want to go back to your analogy of the race car. It's like it's not whether you have a race car if it's sitting in the garage or you're using it to go to the local supermarket to buy milk. How are you using the race car, right? And that's a perfect analogy, right?
And also, what are you using
Um,
it with? Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And what also came up for me is when in the context of middle managers, um, particularly, is the skills that they can invest in or things that they might want to invest in is really understanding the business that your company is in. How does your company make money? What's the business model? Who are your customers and what are their pain points? And that's what, and it goes back to Sahana, what you called out about domain expertise, ability to contextualize, identify problems that are worth solving,
correct.
right? Going back to the ROI piece and the economics piece. uh, I have come across, and I was one of those middle managers that just stayed in my lane, and I knew how work got done in my swim lane, if you will. But the most growth that I experienced was when I went cross-functional, right?
Mm.
When I started to build those bridges across my peer network within companies I work for and understand what do their swim lanes look like, and then trying to zoom out and build that systems perspective of the business that my employer, my organization was in, right? And um, I see that as a huge growth opportunity for middle managers, and I think it's even more highlighted in the world of AI, because those of us that have the ability to hone in on what problems are worth solving for the business and are able to advise our senior leaders on that, I think we have a an increased chance of further growth in this AI driven world of work. So, thank you for shaping this conversation and really helping us with some of those key points. So, as we begin to wrap up, Sahana, what are your parting thoughts on AI and us now and next?
I think it's been great to be part of this conversation, and especially I was just talking to you earlier that your set of your questions are always really catalyst to think more and read more about what's happening in the industry, and even the previous podcast, it was super interesting. I myself got a chance to self reflect, revisit my journey. So, yeah, it's always great to chat with you, Meenakshi. And also, your previous speaker lineups, your conferences have been really great, thought provoking, and very refreshing conversations.
I so appreciate that, Sana. Thank you. And right back at you. Starting with your analogies, I still remember the analogy you shared about middle managers, the middle management layer, a bit like plumbing. Nobody knows you exist until it stops working, and then everybody comes looking for you.
Yes.
I really appreciate your perspectives and your wisdom. And I also invite you to share your Substack. You have a Substack, right?
Yes. Yes.
Can you tell us more about what you write about and where people can find you on Substack?
Yes, yes, sure. So I typically write about my experience. I bring about 18 plus years of experience, both on the program and product side and technology as well. So I write about my reflections on emerging tech, emerging industry trends and patterns. I write more around it. So should I share this maybe?
You can put it in the comment if you can. Otherwise, I'll definitely add it also. You can
Yeah,
send it to
sure,
me. Yeah, yeah.
sure. I can do that.
Yeah. And I also invite everyone to connect with Sahana on LinkedIn, check out her podcast episode, check out her Substack. There's a lot more wisdom than what she shared here today with us, and this has been absolutely fantastic. And about the question, Sahana, so I took your advice and of using AI to augment my capabilities. So I did use Copilot, and I have to also say that it's a Copilot that I have access to through my licensed version of Microsoft Office. So
Oh,
it's a paid subscription that I have through that, and I'm calling that out because this is something Shreya and I talked about in the first episode. So I did use Copilot to co-author the questions and the sequence and all of that, and it has. I'm one of those skeptics about the use of AI, and so this is how I'm slowly figuring it out, and also using it in a way that makes sense for me to help me augment my capacity more than my capability. It's to help me augment my capacity, and that's something that I personally have been using AI based tools for. um, and so well, once again, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who joined us live. If you have questions, if you haven't gotten to any of them, please continue to message us, because we are coming back for our final episode of this conversation series on September the 12th. Same time, September the 12th. And Shreya will join us back as well. So it'll be the three of us, Shreya, Sahana, and I. And we'll wrap up this conversation series on AI and us now and next. And we'll, come back with more insights and more thought-provoking questions. See, that's the other thing. We always don't we answer questions, but we also leave you with more questions so that you can continue this conversation in your own networks. So that's the whole idea of bringing the community together to examine what AI can do for us and how we might use it. Yeah. So with that, this has been absolutely fantastic, and thank you once again, Sahana, for your time and sharing your wisdom so generously with us, and also helping us celebrate our seventh birthday at North Star. So grateful to have you, and all of you who joined us live and those who watched the recording. So until next time, which is September 12th, join us back, same time. Take care and be well. Bye for now.
Bye.